Okay, I'm going to get started by just welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone. Welcome to everyone online as well. Sawadee Krap. Today's class is what we call our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what this is a little bit later. We're going to start with meditation to be able to help you guys to train your mind. Then we're going to get into the learning of the teachings of the Buddha using his original words. What the Buddha did is he figured out how to get to enlightenment. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated through training the mind. This is a mental state that you can experience in this life. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even experience a bad mood any longer. It's physically impossible for you to experience that. So we're going to talk about that more after our meditation, but I just share that with you because you can understand that the training of the mind is an important aspect of what the Buddha taught, and meditation is an important part of that training. You wouldn't be able to meditate your way to enlightenment. You need more than just meditation, but you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without meditation either. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and instantly got to enlightenment, and this isn't actually true. You can see through his own teachings and his own words that it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that leads to enlightenment. And it's not just meditation. Otherwise, you would have just taught meditation and that's it. So there's more than just meditation that you need in order to get to enlightenment. But since meditation is important, I start each one of our classes with meditation. So if you'd like to join for the meditation, the way that I start this is with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. The chanting is over there on a laminated sheet on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself. You're welcome to chant along because the chanting actually helps you to get more benefit out of the meditation itself. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally because 2,500 years ago, they didn't have books and audiobooks and videos and podcasts and all these kinds of things to be able to learn and study and commit the teachings to memory. So they used chanting as a way to do this. So you can see that from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship or prayer or any of that kind of stuff. The Buddha never actually taught those kinds of things. If you have been exposed to those kinds of things, and even in a Buddhist environment, those aren't from the Buddha. Those are significant misunderstandings of his teachings. He's teaching you to train your mind and cultivate wisdom. And there's no amount of rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer that's going to lead to the cultivation of wisdom. So if you'd like to chant along, you'll see that it helps to ease your mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So I'm going to be chanting those first to be able to ease us into the meditation. And you guys are all welcome to join along. For anybody who's online, if you would like to get this chanting sheet, you can go to our website of buddhadailywisdom.com, click on free books, and then scroll down towards the bottom and you'll see the chanting sheet there. If you end up getting one of these chanting sheets and you see the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students either during his life or after his death. Because an individual who's enlightened and surely a Buddha doesn't go around and say, here, chant these chants for me, out of respect for me, right? This would be the ego and arrogance if somebody did this. And by the time someone gets to enlightenment, they don't have that in the mind any longer. So I suspect that his students created these either during his life or after his death. Because if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, all those discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is the enlightened mental state, and this is a permanent mental state that you'll be experiencing for the rest of this life. And this teacher didn't want anything or expect anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's where I suspect these chants came from, his students, either during his life or after his death. After the chanting, I'm going to come in with some guidance to be able to help you meditate. I'll essentially be teaching you and guiding you in the meditation for a period of time where you're basically going to be instructed of how to actually meditate. So you can actually be learning how to meditate while you're actually meditating. But then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. During that period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a bird chirping, a dog barking. Someone here might sneeze or cough or something like that. You can't be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. If you're in meditation, craving permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed. This is one of the core and central teachings of the Buddha, to be able to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. The anger, sadness, frustration, all those feelings, you typically will believe in the unenlightened state that other people are causing you to experience these feelings. But in reality, it is your own mind that's causing these feelings. And that's why you can actually eliminate them. If it was other people that was causing these feelings, you would have no ability to actually eliminate them. What the mind's doing is it's craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world. Things are constantly changing around you, but the unenlightened mind craves permanence. So if you're in meditation, craving permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. But if you understand the universal truth of impermanence and that things are constantly changing in the world, when you hear that sound, you'll realize that that's normal. And what's going to happen is that sound's going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. And you can reside peaceful, understanding that the world's functioning exactly the way it was intended to function. So during that period of time of quietness, you can just be at ease, understanding that you're going to experience impermanence. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's class, helping you to understand what the Pali Canon and English study group is, and then we'll actually do that. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times in your journey to enlightenment. It's kind of like assembling a tool belt so that you'll have different tools available to you at different times in your journey to enlightenment, because you're going to need these different positions at different times, because your body can't be in the same position permanently, because you live in an impermanent world and things are going to change. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So I'll give you guys some guidance on the seated position just to help you guys maybe gain some more comfort in where it is that you're actually sitting. You can sit on the floor, you can sit in a chair. If you're at home, you might be on a bench or a sofa in a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. So whatever I'm sharing with you is just to help you understand some things, to find some more comfort. It's not anything that you have to do. You can sit however you like. There's not just one way to sit in meditation, because that would be permanence, and everybody's body is completely different. So there's different ways to sit. So you need to find what's comfortable for you. So what I'm going to share with you are just some things for you to think about, some suggestions, some things for you to consider if you would like to find something more comfortable than the way you're currently sitting. So if you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This will kind of soften your seat a bit. If you're going to cross your legs, you might just decide to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation and can cause pain in the lower body. Sometimes people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here as well. You could put your palms on your thighs or your knees. Some people like to put their palms up, or even rest your hands comfortably in your lap. So you can find what's ever comfortable for you. In terms of anybody who might be sitting in a chair or on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, it's the same thing. You can sit however you're comfortable. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair with my legs crossed, so this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if this is erect, with your sternum up and your shoulders back. It'll help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind can be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back, which will not only keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll help make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Because this is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you need the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation so that you can actively train it. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with chanting. You guys are welcome to join along. Then I'm going to come back in with some guidance to help you from there. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Wat Tung Bhagavanang Apivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Oto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. สัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโอตังมหาเขวันนังอภิวาเตมิ สวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. This meditation is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is a primary form of training that the Buddha used in addition to other things in order to train his mind to get to enlightenment. This meditation is teaching your mind to let go, because this is what's causing your mind to experience things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. The mind is holding on. It's craving permanence, wanting things to be a certain way permanently, but yet you live in an impermanent world. The mind lacks the wisdom of the impermanent nature of the world, so it craves permanence, wanting things to be a certain way permanently. So if you could think back to maybe like a boyfriend or girlfriend that you were together with, when you guys first got together, you might have got so excited or so happy, but then when you guys broke up, you were sad or angry or frustrated, or maybe you were lonely or bored or missing this person. It wasn't your love that was causing that. What it was your mind was craving permanence, wanting this person to be permanent in your life. In reality, they're impermanent. People are going to be coming and going in and out of your life your entire life. So if your mind is craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world, it's only a matter of time before things happen in a certain way that your mind's craving this, but it happens this way over here. So this meditation is helping you to develop awareness of mind, which is called mindfulness, concentration, to be able to focus and concentrate, and to be able to train your mind to let go. And this is what's going to ultimately help you, in addition to other things, to get to the point where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. the Buddha discovered certain pollutions that are in the mind. These are referred to as the fetters, or the taints, or the defilements, or some people refer to them as pollutions. These 10 fetters, they're referred to as a fetter because during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would put a shackle and a chain and a ball around your ankle, and this is how they would keep you confined in a certain area if you were like a prisoner. Where today we put prisoners in jail cells or prison cells, where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would just attach a fetter around your ankle and turn you out in a field. And then you would be confined to that area. So when he discovered these 10 pollutions in the mind, he referred to them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state where it keeps experiencing things like anger, sadness, frustration, and others over and over and over and over again. So the goal of this path to enlightenment is to purify your mind so that you can get free of these fetters or these pollutions or these defilements or these taints. And that's what's going to actually lead to the peace and the joy. And this comes through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. You can't just snap your fingers and instantly get to enlightenment. It's just not possible. And you also can't meditate your way to enlightenment. You're going to need meditation, but you're going to need other teachings as well. And that's where all the different programs and classes and courses and retreats come in, that you can go to a place like this where you can gradually learn the original teachings of the Buddha to be able to see what did he teach and what he didn't teach. And I have various programs here to be able to help students to be able to understand, based on the original words of the Buddha, of what he actually taught. And then you don't believe his teachings. There's no belief in the teachings of the Buddha. You're not believing a bunch of things and then hoping something good happens when you die. You're learning, examining, investigating the teachings to intellectually understand them. Then you're reflecting on his teachings to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. Then you practice his teachings, integrating these tools and techniques into your day-to-day life in order to transform your mind and uproot these pollutions out of the mind. And as you're gradually uprooting these pollutions, you're going to see improvement to the condition of your mind in your life. You'll get to the point where not only have you eliminated those discontent feelings, but you'll notice that the mind is focused, concentrated. You'll have clarity of mind and deep memory. You'll notice that there's personal, professional relationships that are really blossoming because you don't have this bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind any longer. And this is why you can experience the focus, concentration, clarity, and deep memory, because when you have pollutions in your mind, it's not performing very well. But when you uproot these out of the mind will perform optimally. And as I mentioned, you can get to the point where you're not even in a bad mood any longer. So there's a certain amount of intellectual learning that you need to do. And there's various programs we have here. Like on Sunday and Wednesday, we have something called the group learning program, where I gradually walk students through this first book that we have, where each Sunday I do chapter by chapter, helping students to be able to understand the original teachings of the Buddha. And this is a great place for people to start with this first book. You can actually get it for free. You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order it on Amazon. And this is where I recommend for everyone to start, with this book and in the group learning program on Sundays and Wednesdays, which I teach at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. And that's going to gradually help you to learn the teachings of the Buddha. Tomorrow in this program, I'm going to be in chapter 13, but you can actually join at any point. You don't have to start at the beginning. You can actually join at any point in this program. So if you'd like to learn in a more traditional method of learning, that's a great program for you, where I'll teach for 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then I open up for questions. I teach another 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up for questions. And then there's programs like this, and there's others that I teach. There's courses and retreats that I teach that are like week-long classes and courses and retreats, and you can get a real good dose of the teachings of the Buddha in a short period of time. What this program is about, the Pali Canon and English study group, is where we study the original words of the Buddha, more of a study group rather than a traditional style of learning. The original teachings of the Buddha are in 45 volumes of books that are about this thick. In this book series that I share, which is 13 books, it's extracted the most important teachings that are going to help you to be able to make your way to enlightenment. And what we do in this program is we study those words. And today, we're actually starting a new book. It's called Lowly Arts. This is volume 12 of the book series. So this program has been going on for quite a while. It's a 1.5-year program, and I teach it continuously. So this is like I think the third time, maybe the second or third time that I've taught this entire program from beginning to end. We're actually starting this new book. This book, Lowly Arts, is all about helping you to understand things like rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship and prayer and things like this have nothing to do with the teachings of the Buddha. I say this frequently because people are usually surprised, because if you look out in the world, you're going to see an enormous amount of misunderstandings about the teachings of the Buddha. You'll probably have already been exposed to certain rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer associated with the teachings of the Buddha. And if you've been exposed to those kinds of things, you'll be able to see today through the words of the Buddha that he never taught those kinds of things, because it doesn't lead to wisdom. It doesn't lead to the cultivation of the mind. Everything that he taught you is how to train your mind and uproot these pollutions out of the mind. And there's no amount of rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer that's going to allow you to cultivate wisdom and uproot these pollutions out of the mind. So we're going to be starting this new book, and in this program, what we do is we study like a study group, where I invite volunteers here at the temple to be able to read one of these chapters. And these chapters are actually quite short. You can see this one is about a page and a quarter, and these are the words of the Buddha. And then if there's anyone here at the temple or online in Zoom that would like to read this, after you've read it, then I'm going to share some teachings on this to be able to help you understand, because oftentimes there's a teaching from the Buddha that is connected to other teachings. And if you haven't understood those other teachings, it would be challenging for you to maybe understand a particular teaching that the Buddha is sharing. So it's helpful to have a dedicated practitioner and teacher to guide you on the path to enlightenment. But you need to do the work to learn, grow, and develop on the path to enlightenment. And then after I share some teachings on this, I'm going to open up to questions that you guys might have related to what it is that we've studied. So if there's anyone here that would like to volunteer to read, or if you have questions at any point, we have microphones in the white bowl over there by the bookshelf. You're welcome to help yourself to get a microphone. All you need to do is press the gray button. You're going to see the lights come on, and then you can hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And you can keep these microphones with you at your seat, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can just use the microphone or share it with other people. And then when you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be sure that we don't get feedback through the microphone. And then anybody who's in Zoom, if you would like to volunteer to read this chapter or any of the others, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and then we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you throughout the live stream as well. And when we get to the question period, it's the same thing. You guys can ask questions with the microphones, and then online, you can put your question into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, or you can electronically raise your hand in Zoom and ask any and all questions that you like. So is there anyone here that would like to read this first chapter? Or anybody on Zoom? Yeah, if you could get a microphone, and you're welcome to get a couple of microphones and hand them out if you guys would like to have some different microphones around. We have plenty. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, because they're impermanent. So it's kind of nice to have a few around. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's very nice.
Chapter 1. What are the lowly arts? Venerable Sir, whereas some ascetics and Brahmins, feeding on the food of the dedicated, make their living by such base arts, such wrong means of livelihood as palmistry, divining by signs, portents, dreams, body marks, mouth gnawings, fire ablations, ablations from a ladle of husks, rice powders, rice grains, ghee or oil from the mouth or of blood, reading the fingertips, house and garden lore, skill in charms, ghost lore, earth house lore, snake lore, poison lore, rat lore, bird lore, crow lore, foretelling a person's lifespan, charms against arrows, knowledge of animals' cries. Whereas some ascetics and Brahmins make their living by such base arts as judging the marks of jeans, sticks, clothes, words, spears, arrows, weapons, women, men, boys, girls, male and female slaves, elephants, horses, buffaloes, bulls, cows, goats, rams, cocks, quail, iguanas, bamboo rats, tortoise, deer. Whereas some ascetics and Brahmins make their living by such base arts as predicting. The chiefs will march out, the chiefs will march back, our chiefs will advance, and the other chiefs will retreat. Our chiefs will win, and the other chiefs will lose. The other chiefs will win, and ours will lose. Thus, there will be victory for one side and defeat for the other. Whereas some ascetics and Brahmins make their living by such base arts as predicting an eclipse of the moon, the sun, a star, that the sun and moon will go on their proper course, will go astray, and a star will go on its proper course, will go astray, and there will be a shower of meteors, a blaze in the sky, an earthquake, thunder, a rising, setting, darkening, brightening of the moon, the sun, the stars, and such will be the outcome of these things. Whereas some ascetics and Brahmins make their living by such base arts as predicting good or bad rainfall, a good or bad harvest, security, danger, disease, health, or accounting, computing, calculating, poetic composition, philosophizing, whereas some ascetics and Brahmins make their living by such base arts as arranging the giving and taking in marriage, engagement, and divorces, declaring the time for saving and spending, bringing good or bad luck, procuring abortions, using spells to bite the tongue, biting the jaw, making the hands jerk, causing deafness, getting answers with a mirror, a girl medium, a heavenly being worshipping the sun or great Brahman, breathing fire, invoking the goodness, the goddess of luck. Whereas some ascetics and Brahmins, feeding on the food of the dedicated, make their living by such base arts, such wrong means of livelihood, as appeasing the heavenly beings and redeeming vows to them, making earth house spells, causing virility or impotence, preparing and consecrating building sites, giving ritual raisings and bathings, making sacrifices, giving emetics, purges, expectorants, and pelargos, giving ear, eye, nose medicine, ointment and counter ointment, eye surgery, pediatry, using palms to counter the side effects of previous remedies.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. So here, this is just a discourse where the Buddha is just describing what these lowly arts are. In a next discourse, you're going to see the Buddha explaining that he doesn't do any of these things. He doesn't support himself through these types of things. Instead, what he did is he shared the teachings that it takes for people to get to enlightenment. At one time, he was a prince destined to become a king, and he stepped down, he stepped away from the royal riches, and he went into this life of homelessness where he actually trained his mind to be able to get to enlightenment. And you don't need to enter into a life of homelessness in order to get to enlightenment, but that's just one of the things that the Buddha did in terms of his lifestyle. What you need to be able to do is uproot the pollutions out of the mind, and that doesn't mean that you need to be ordained or that you need to enter into a life of homelessness. But what the Buddha is talking about here is that eventually he's going to say in this next discourse that he doesn't do any of these kinds of things. Instead, what he does is he shares the wisdom of what it takes for people to be able to get to enlightenment. That all of these things actually lead to what we refer to as wrong view. What wrong view is where you don't understand what's truly causing your own discontent feelings, and you don't understand what's called the natural law of karma, of cause and effect. Now, some people call this karma. You might have heard this. This is from the Sanskrit language, where the word karma is from the Pali language. The original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language, so people who study his original teachings will tend to use the word karma. What this means is cause and effect, or action and result, essentially the results of your decisions. It's nothing mystical or magical. It's not about who's to blame or who's at fault. It's not about punishments and rewards. It's about when you make a certain decision, either wisely or unwisely, there's going to be a certain result. And that result's either going to be wholesome karma or wholesome results, or unwholesome karma or unwholesome results. And it's based on whether your decision's wise or unwise. So everything you experience in life is based on decisions that you're making. Your experiences in life aren't based in good luck or bad luck. There's no such thing as good luck or bad luck. The Buddha never taught that this even exists, because what you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis is based on the decisions that you make. It's also not about some being like God or some entity called the universe that's controlling what you experience. It's also not destiny or fate. There's no destiny or fate. It's your decisions that are leading to any particular result. And sometimes people think that it's other people that are causing you to experience certain things. So if you think that what you're experiencing in your day-to-day life is good luck or bad luck, or destiny or fate, or if it's God or some entity called the universe, or if it's other people that are causing you to experience the things you experience in your day-to-day life, you're stuck. You can't do anything. You can't fix anything about your life. You're just a robot, because it's good luck or bad luck, or destiny or fate, or it's God or some entity called the universe controlling what you experience, or it's other people that are controlling what you experience. But this isn't true. This isn't true reality, but the mind in the unenlightened state will oftentimes believe these things. So the Buddha taught wisdom of how to train the mind to awaken to true reality, where you can see that what you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis is based on your decisions in this natural law of karma. And when you lack wisdom of this natural law, you will tend to go around the world making unwise decisions, and you will experience unwholesome results. Not because you're a bad person or you've done anything wrong. It's just that the mind lacks wisdom of the causes that lead to wholesome results or wholesome karma. So when you awaken, what you're doing is you're cultivating wisdom about this natural law, so that now you can make wiser and wiser decisions to experience more and more wholesome results. But these things that he's talking about here actually don't lead to wisdom. So what he's talking about here at the beginning is he says some ascetics and Brahmins. Ascetic is an ordained practitioner, someone who's given up worldly life in order to enter into a life of homelessness, and they're journeying on the path to enlightenment. And when they get to a certain amount of wisdom, they share that wisdom with other people. What a Brahmin is this is a Hindu priest. During the lifetime of the Buddha, you were born into this family, and then you performed rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, and people were paying you for this service. And during this period of time, the Buddha knew that this wasn't actually true, that this isn't how your life got better. But nonetheless, these people would sometimes study with the Buddha. And he's talking about these individuals feeding on the food of the dedicated, right? Because there's these dedicated people in the community that are looking to get to enlightenment. They're looking for guidance. They're looking for wisdom. They're looking for help. But these people who might be feeding themselves based on this food from the dedicated, meaning that they're living off of donations from the public, but yet they're making their livelihood through all of these things. right? So they've got this kind of like side job where they're doing these other things that is promoting wrong view, but yet they're living off of this food from the dedicated. And what you're going to see that the Buddha ultimately teaches is he says he doesn't do this, right? Because if people are giving you donations to be able to support your life with things like food, clothing, shelter, and medical care, the wise thing to do would be give those people back something that can help them, right? And the thing that the Buddha had to be able to help people was wisdom. And when you share that wisdom with people, then they can learn it. They can reflect on it to independently verify it. Then they can practice it, and they can see the condition of their mind in their life is improving. So now there's this mutual support between the teachers and the students, that this here isn't actually supporting the students. This is actually taking them deeper and deeper into a lack of wisdom, or some people call it delusion or ignorance or misunderstanding. Some of these things are things that a household practitioner might actually do, but in terms of an ordained practitioner, the Buddha guided people not to do these kinds of things because it promotes wrong view, and it actually takes you away from the true purpose of being ordained, which is to grow and develop your own wisdom, get as close to enlightenment or enlightened, so that then you can actually share that wisdom with other people. So most of these things would be unwise for just about anybody, but there's some things in here like you might have saw, like computing and accounting. Here it is right here. There were certain medical things in here, like doing podiatry and things of this nature. These are things that, a household practitioner might actually do because there's no harm in doing those things. But as an ordained practitioner, or someone who's living off of the food of the dedicated, meaning donations from the public, if you were to go off and do these kinds of things where you had a job on the side, it would be unwise. What the Buddha taught is that if you're going to share the teachings to help other people get to enlightenment, that you should let go of your worldly life and be fully devoted to sharing the teachings to help people get to enlightenment. Whereas if I had like a job on the side where I was running a business and trying to make money, well, when a student calls up and says, "Hey, David, I need your help with something." "Oh, I can't help you right now. I'm running my business over here. I got to make some money," right? So if you had that kind of thing going on, you would be pulled between these two kinds of things and find it very difficult to support a community of practitioners that are making their way to enlightenment. So what the Buddha teaches teachers to do is to let go of all of that and fully dedicate their time to sharing the teachings that are going to actually help people to get to enlightenment. So this is the Buddha just kind of laying out what are these lowly arts. But here in a moment, you're going to see him share that he doesn't actually do any of these things. And you understand the reason why now. So do you guys have any questions on this one, either here or online? Remember, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or those of you guys here, if you could use the microphones, that'd be great. Any questions? Okay, I don't see. You have a question? Yes, ma'am. It's on now. Oh, no, it's not on yet. Just press it and
Hello?
There you go.
Yeah, so you mentioned that our life is made up of all kinds of decisions made by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to, any decision will lead to an uncertain result.
Mm-hmm.
But my question would be, how should we make sure or try our best to make the right decision?
Mm-hmm.
And furthermore, if we make a decision, then we get bad results.
Mm-hmm.
How can we deal with that?
Sure.
I'll give you a very simple example.
Mm-hmm.
I have a hard time to deal with that difficult situation, which is, I'm from China, and the housing price is changing, like in the past few years. So very specifically, if you buy a house, like before the year of 2019 or 2020, then maybe you, around that year, you buy the house at the highest price. Then a lot of people like me, suddenly we will shoulder a quite heavy burden, money-wise. So how can we deal with such a situation that we can't really change we have nothing to do with it. We make our decisions. We thought, yeah, we need a home at that moment at least. We don't think we made anything wrong. However, that lead to a really not so good result. So in this case, I'd like you to hear your wisdom on this, how to deal with such decision, these so-called bad decision.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't encourage you to think of it as right and wrong or good or bad, because this will take your mind in a direction that isn't going to lead to growth and development. What you need to be able to do is get to wise decision making, and there's certain unwise decisions. And you need to be able to look at the results that you're experiencing in any given situation to be able to help you to discern what are the decisions that I made that led to this particular outcome, whether it was a wholesome result or unwholesome result, because then when you cultivate wisdom, you can actually experience improved results. So when we blame what we experience on other people, or we think it's good luck or bad luck or destiny or fate, or if we think it's God or some entity called the universe, it never gives you the opportunity to cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and experience different results. So purchasing a home, and you purchase it at the top of the market, and then the market drops out, and now your house isn't as valuable as it once was. You need to be able to understand this is change. This is impermanence. This is the way the world works. Prices sometimes go up, sometimes they come down. This is just constant change. And then as an investor, because that's what you're doing when you're purchasing a home, you're investing, you need to be able to understand investments and how to make investments at certain times. And understand that no matter how good of an investor you are, you're going to sometimes lose money. It doesn't matter. Even an enlightened being, even if an enlightened being was an investor, because you can be an enlightened being and be rich and wealthy too. It's just that you're not going to be tied to your money and forming your emotions based on your money. You're always going to experience some amount of loss. There's 5 things that you can't avoid in the world: sickness, aging, death, loss, and destruction. It doesn't matter how enlightened you are, you're going to still experience these 5 things. But the difference is that in the unenlightened state, you'll experience anger, frustration, agitation, and all those other discontent feelings when you're experiencing sickness, aging, death, loss, and destruction. But as an enlightened being, the mind has already been trained to not crave permanence. So when they experience sickness, aging, death, loss, and destruction, their mind can remain completely peaceful and joyful because they're not craving permanence. Because all these 5 things is change. That's all that is. So all you've experienced is change, that your house price was here when you bought it and now it's here, right? But that's going to change too, right? It's going to go up again. It's going to come down again. So you're going to experience the up and down of market fluctuation. And what you would like to do is cultivate as much wisdom as possible so that when you're making investments, you can, over the long term, increase your wealth. And then understand that no matter how good of an investor you are, you will lose money. It's only a matter of time. It's not possible for you to always experience profit.
Thank you for your answer. And I find it really interesting that I once thought that Buddhism is all about how you feel. So if you have a bad result, you need to let's just say to suck it up and then feel good about it, even if the objective result is really bad. But according to what you taught me, I thought maybe Buddhism is more about you need to develop a certain skill to adapt to the life. For example, a fluctuating market, and to be more wise in reality, in the real world. Yeah. Does it make sense?
Yes. Right? So what you're doing is you're cultivating wisdom about how the world truly works, because the unenlightened mind doesn't understand how the world truly works. And that's why it struggles and has difficulties in the world. The stress and anxiety that one experiences, it's because there's a lack of wisdom of how the world truly works. Where let's just say mom gets sick, and now you're stressed about mom being sick, or you're frustrated or angry because mom's sick. Well, this is because the mind's holding on and craving mom to be permanently healthy, when it's not possible for mom to be permanently healthy, because we live in an impermanent world. So the mind lacks wisdom of that basic understanding that the world is constantly changing, and it craves permanence. So now when mom's sick, an individual might have stress or anger or frustration, where in reality, you can just maintain your peacefulness, understand that, yeah, of course mom's sick because she's impermanent. Now let me just make some wise decisions to be able to help her to get back to health. Maybe we take her to the doctor. Maybe we get some medicine for her. Maybe she needs some good food or whatever it is. We'll restore mom back to health, but ultimately she is going to die. It's only a matter of time because she was born, she has to die. Right? But of course, we're going to make wise decisions to try to help her live as best a life as possible, but it's going to happen. But in the unenlightened state, because of its lack of wisdom of the way the world truly works, it will struggle and have difficulties. So that's what it means to awaken the mind to enlightenment, is to cultivate wisdom about how the world truly works and how it functions. But with the pollutions in the mind is hindered from being able to accomplish that. So that's what the Buddha teaches you, is how to train your mind to be able to awaken and cultivate the wisdom. And that's why this particular chapter, he was guiding his ordained practitioners to not do these things, but instead to focus on learning and growing and developing themselves, so that then they could help other people to learn, grow, and develop as well. Because if they're living off the food of the dedicated, they need to be able to give back to these people something that's going to help them, because these people are helping you to be able to sustain your life as an ordained practitioner, as a teacher, and now you need to be able to give them the wisdom back that's going to help improve their life. And these rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, prayer, all these things that the Buddha is talking about, that's not going to enhance your life. Going to your house and sprinkling some water to bless your house or things like this isn't going to produce any beneficial results, because whether somebody experiences beneficial results in that house is based on their decisions. Has nothing to do with sprinkling this water around. It's based on the decisions that we make that are going to lead to any particular result. So the Buddha is helping his ordained practitioners here to understand, stay focused on the path to enlightenment, growing and developing wisdom, and then give that wisdom to the public so that they can grow and develop as well. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. That is very enlightening.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, if you could turn that off for us, then we won't get feedback. All right. So I don't see any other questions anywhere. So I'm going to move into the second one. This second one here, if I remember correctly, it's very similar. Yeah, it's very similar to this first one, so we don't have to read this. But essentially what it is it's the same thing that we just read, where the Buddha is just saying, thus the worldling would praise the Tathagata. What the Buddha is saying is that he doesn't practice any of these things, and because of that, household practitioners praise him for that he doesn't do these rituals and ceremonies and worship and things like that. When he refers to the worldling, what he's referring to here is he's referring to an individual who's in the household life. He referred to these people as worldlings because they were holding on to the world, wanting the world to be permanent. So we would refer to them as worldlings. So he is saying the same exact things that this young lady just read, but he's saying the aesthetic Gotama, meaning himself, refrains from such base arts and wrong means of livelihood. Thus, the worldling would praise the Tathagata. Right? So he's saying he doesn't do these things. So this is a way of teaching people of the path to enlightenment without putting expectations on them. He didn't go around to his students and say, you have to do this, and you have to do that, and you have to do that. He didn't give out a bunch of rules and commandments to people. He just explained what it took for him to get to this enlightened mental state. He shared that with other people. And then if other people would like to practice it, to be able to see the truth for themselves, that indeed these teachings lead to this peaceful and joyful mental state, it's up to them to choose to do that. So this is a great way of teaching without putting expectations on people, without having rules and commandments. Sometimes people think that the Buddha taught rules and commandments because maybe that's the way that they've been taught and that's the perspective that they have. But if you read his original teachings, you won't see him having rules and commandments. He's just sharing with you, this is what he did in order to be able to get to enlightenment. And if you'd like to experience that same mental state, here it is. Here's how he did it. So this is the same thing. I don't think we have to read that over because it's just kind of sharing that he doesn't do these things and that people praise him for choosing not to do those things. By the way, what you have here is you have the words of the Buddha in these books. You have a reference that takes you back to the original source teachings and the 45 volumes of books, so you can see where this came from. Then you have words from me that are helping you to be able to understand how this teaching relates to the path to enlightenment and how to get the most benefit out of these types of teachings. The Buddha teaches very clear, very concise, very precise. You can see that in his words. You don't have to interpret what he's saying. So what I'm sharing with you here is just helping you to understand how this particular teaching might be connected to others and how to integrate it into your day-to-day life. So that's what my words are here for. So let's see what this next one is here. Keep on going. Here we go. So this is also very similar to the one we just read. So here, this is the same exact thing, each of the paragraphs. But then he says, a monk refrains from such base arts and wrong means of livelihood. Thus, he is perfected in morality. So the first one was just explaining what this is. The second one, the Buddha is saying, I don't do these things. The third one is, hey, if you're an ordained practitioner that's practicing these teachings closely, you would also refrain from these wrong means of livelihood. And in this way, your morality would be perfected, because now you're receiving these donations from the public, and now you're giving them back the wisdom that is going to help them to get to enlightenment instead of propagating wrong view. So that's what this one is. And it's very similar to the one that we were reading previously. So now let's see what the fourth one is here. Okay, this one we can read. This one's only a half a page. Would somebody like to read this one? Yes, ma'am.
The various kinds of pointless talk. Is it on?
Yep, we can hear you.
Monks do not engage in the various kinds of pointless talk, that is, talk about kings, thieves, and ministers of state. Talk about armies, dangers, and wars. Talk about food, drink, garments, and beds. Talk about garlands and scents. Talk about relations, vehicles, villages, towns, cities, and countries. Talk about women and talk about heroes. Straight talk and talk by the well. Talk about those departed in days gone by. Rambling chit-chat, speculation about the world and about the sea. Talk about the becoming this or that. For what reason? Because, monks, this talk is unbeneficial, irrelevant to the fundamentals of the holy life, and does not lead to fading away of strong feelings, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge, experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So the Buddha is guiding multiple people to enlightenment during his lifetime. His ordained practitioners are the ones who are studying the closest, but there's also household practitioners that are studying with them as well. This particular book goes into a lot of the teachings for the ordained practitioners, but there's things in here that'll be helpful for household practitioners too. Here, he's guiding the ordained practitioners of things that would be unwise to actually talk about. And some of these things are unwise for household practitioners to talk about too. Here, he's saying it's pointless talk. Talk about kings, right? So basically, we might think about this like the government and politics, right? Like if you're going around talking about politics, it's actually going to potentially lead to arguments and agitation and conflicts in the relationships that you're in. Because of impermanence, it's not possible for people to agree with you what your thoughts and opinions are on politics. And if you go around wanting to convince others and wanting other people to agree with you, your craving, desire, attachment for other people to agree with you is going to produce discontentedness in your own mind. Because when you sit down with your family or friends and you see that they disagree with you, you're going to have a craving for them to agree with you. And you're going to keep trying to convince them to agree with you. And when they don't, it's almost like a fight to death. The unenlightened mind is almost like an animal. You're a human being, you're not an animal. But the unenlightened mind oftentimes functions like an animal. And two animals who disagree, they'll fight to death, right? And that's what two animals will do. And human beings in the unenlightened state will essentially do that on things like politics. right? So the Buddha teaches not to talk about those kinds of things. And here I'm just relating that to kings, but you'll see other teachings that he teaches that he actually talks about it as far as politics and heads of state and things like this. He talks about it much more clearly, where here he's talking about kings, which during that lifetime, that was essentially the government as the way that we might think about it. Thieves, he's talking about like criminal cases and stuff like this. Like if there's a big sensational case in the public and people have formed certain views and opinions, whether this person is guilty or innocent, if you go around talking with people about that, you're going to find that some people are going to agree with you and some people aren't. And now people oftentimes in the unenlightened state, when you don't agree with them, they're going to push you away. Right? They're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile to you. They're going to start putting their expectations on you and trying to control you and force you to think about these things in the same way as you. So when there's these big sensational cases and, criminal cases in the news, it's unwise to go around talking about this because you're just lining up on a certain side. And now people are either going to agree with you or disagree with you. And people are either going to push you away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put expectations on you. So while the Buddha is teaching you to train your mind to get rid of certain pollutions so that you can navigate the world peacefully and joyfully, he's also teaching you how to associate with people who are in the unenlightened state, who aren't training their mind. And the vast majority of the world isn't training their mind. So when you go out into the world talking about these kinds of things, then this is what's going to lead to arguments and conflicts and difficulties in your relationships. Here he says ministers of state, right? That's the government, essentially. Talk about armies, right? If there's wars and stuff like that, he's talking about that here, right? That oftentimes if you're sitting there talking about wars, you're just taking sides. And now in a situation where you're doing that, then people once again are going to push you away, be bitter, harsh, and hostile, or put expectations on you. Here, he's talking to the ordained practitioners because as an ordained practitioner, one of your roles is to teach other people. And if a teacher took a position on these kinds of things, then there's going to be certain students that agree with that position, and there's going to be other students who disagree with that particular decision. And in order to be able to teach people and help them get to enlightenment, you need to stay open to being able to teach everybody and anybody, even if they have different views and opinions than you, right? If you have a certain opinion about any of these types of things and you express that as a teacher, then there's a certain portion of the students that are going to disagree with you, and they're like, I can't learn from this person. Right? So the Buddha teaches his teachers, the ordained practitioners, to not talk about any of these kinds of things because it's pointless. It doesn't lead to the ultimate goal of an individual who's a teacher and who's an ordained practitioner, which is getting to enlightenment themselves and then helping other people to get to enlightenment as well. That's what a teacher, that's what an ordained practitioner is doing, is they're working to get to enlightenment themselves, and they're helping other people get to enlightenment as well. So the Buddha encouraged people who were living off of the food of the dedicated not to do any of these wrong livelihoods that would promote wrong view, but also not to talk about this pointless types of topics that are just going to create conflict, and then it's going to close you off to being able to be a teacher for the entire public. As a ordained practitioner, as a teacher, you would like to remain open to be able to teach as many people as possible. And if you're out there talking about these kinds of things, you're not going to be able to do that because it's like taking sides of one place or another. So let's just say, I'm not into sports, but let's just say I had a certain sports team that I just thought was the best sports team, and I advocated for that sports team. Well, there's going to be someone else who doesn't like that sports team, and now they can't learn with me because they don't like that sports team that I might particularly like, right? So now if you express that as a teacher, now you've closed off your ability to be able to help all people because now that person isn't going to be interested in learning from you, right? So that's why the Buddha taught his ordained practitioners not to talk about these things. Now, some of these things you might talk about as a household practitioner, but let's look at this one, street talk. We might call this slang, right? Going around and having slang or gossip and slander. The Buddha didn't teach to do that. Talk by the well. This is like gossip and slander, right? So nowadays, like if you're in an office, people still typically go around the water cooler, right? Where in the old days, during the lifetime of the Buddha, it was the well, right? Where now it's essentially the same thing. It's just a water cooler in the office and people are standing around it, slandering and gossiping and chit-chatting, right? This is unwise to do that, because in that office environment, if you're gossiping and slandering people, it's only a matter of time before they gossip and slander you, right? When your back's turned, they're going to be gossiping and slandering about you. So if you don't like it when people gossip and slander about you, you would be wise to not do that yourself. Instead, practice the teachings of the Buddha where you're not gossiping and slandering and degrading and diminishing other people. Because what the mind's doing in that situation is it's trying to degrade and diminish other people in order for you to look better. But you actually don't look better because you're gossiping and slandering. It's kind of like going into a dark room and everybody has a candle, and the mind thinks, let me put out everybody else's candle so that my candle can shine brighter. Well, we're in a dark room. We need everybody's candle to shine bright. Let's not put out other people's candles. So when you're gossiping and slandering, you're trying to put out other people's candle, right? And this is unwise. At the height of this, you can actually be murdered. There's plenty of people in the world that have experienced that. That's the cause and effect. That's the natural law of karma. If you go out into the world gossiping and slandering about people, there's the potential for you to get murdered or beat up or lose your job, or at the very least, people are going to be gossiping and slandering about you. That's the natural law of karma. It's not punishments and rewards. There's no being who's controlling that. That's not good luck or bad luck. That's not destiny or fate. That's not other people controlling what you experience. That's your decisions that's leading to that particular result. That's what the Buddha is teaching you, is to have the wisdom to understand how to navigate the world peacefully. So he teaches you not to gossip and slander in other parts of his teachings, but here he's talking about it in this way. So there's different things that he's talking about here. If you guys have any questions on this, let me know. Does anybody have questions here? Yes, ma'am.
Where he's mentioning speculation about the world and about the sea.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand what...
Yeah, the Buddha teaches not to speculate, meaning like form perceptions of what may or may not be, because you need to base all your decisions in wisdom. He has this other teaching where he says if you try to speculate about the world, it's going to lead to either madness or frustration. We might think about speculating about the world as like conspiracy theories, right? If you're a person who has all these conspiracy theories in your mind, you don't really know what actually happened. You're just assuming all these things happen. It's going to lead to madness or frustration. And if you know anybody who dives into that stuff, you know that that's true. That's what the Buddha is teaching you, is the cause and effect, that if you allow your mind to speculate, then you're not operating through truth, and you're not able to make wise decisions that lead to wholesome results. Because in order to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to bring your practice up to the point where you're making wise decisions for multiple years. That's what's going to actually lead to the improvement in the condition of your mind and your life. So if you're speculating about the world or about the sea, you're not basing your decisions in truth, in reality, because it's just a speculation or an assumption or a perception. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. The people online couldn't hear, so I'll just repeat it. She's saying that means you're not basing your decision based on what really is, and that's correct. What the Buddha is teaching you to do is see true reality. Then you need to be able to see true reality, because the unenlightened mind has difficulty seeing that, because its pollutions are hindering it from being able to do that. So one of the things he teaches you not to do that's unwise is to cling to your perceptions. What a perception is a view or opinion that may or may not even be true. If you cling to your perceptions, you'll make unwise decisions that are going to lead to unwholesome results. I give an example about this, that if you were training to be a police officer, one of the things they do is they teach you not to cling to your perceptions, because as a police officer, you're making life or death decisions. And if you cling to an assumption or a perception, you could actually make an unwise decision that leads to a very unwholesome result. So as a police officer, if I was dispatched to a convenience store and they told me, hey, there's a robbery going on, we need you to go down to that convenience store. Well, if I rush into the convenience store and I sling open the door and there's someone in a black hoodie with a gun standing over someone and they're bleeding out, the person on the ground is bleeding out. Well, if I just walk in and I cling to my perceptions and I pull out my gun and I start shooting the person in the black hoodie with the gun, I might have actually just killed an innocent person, because that might be the cashier. The cashier might have managed to get the gun out of the person's hand and they shot the robber, and the robber is the one on the ground, right? So what the police officers are trained to do is to walk in, pull your gun, hey, police, put down the gun. Because if it's an innocent person, they're going to look and they're going to be, thank goodness the police are here. They're going to willingly toss their gun away. Whereas if it's the person who's robbing, they're going to turn and point the gun to the police officer. And now that's when they're going to get killed, right? Because the police officer is going to shoot them. So you can see in this extreme example of how unwise it is to cling to perceptions. So that's why the Buddha teaches you, don't speculate about the world, that whenever you make decisions, you need to base it in wisdom, in true reality, because that's what's going to lead to wholesome results for you. You can't ever get to wholesome results or wholesome karma if you speculate about the world and you cling to your perceptions. So that's why you need to always cut through that, because what your mind's going to be doing in the unenlightened state, because of its cravings, you're going to want to hurry up and get to pleasant feelings, right? Because the mind thinks, if I can just get this thing, oh, I'll feel so happy, I'll feel so great. The mind gets all those pleasant feelings. The mind's going to want to go, 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 go. It's rushing. So you need to be able to restrain the mind and pull it back. Take your time, look at the situation fully, and then make a wise decision. And if that means you delay your decision for a few days or a few weeks or even a few months, then that's what you're going to need to do in order to fully cultivate all the wisdom to then make a wise decision. It would be very unwise to make decisions based on half-truths, because that means you're not going to be able to experience wholesome results 100%. And by the time you get to enlightenment, you're only experiencing wholesome results in your day-to-day life. There's no unwholesome results at all. Mm-hmm. Rachel, you have a question?
I understand I'm not ordained. I have a livelihood that produces income. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm trying to navigate towards a perfected livelihood with perfected speech. Mm-hmm. And I'm always trying to navigate the two. For example, I have one student, and she's a mature student. She has very good English. She prefers that we just speak. So we just converse for 1 or 2 hours a week. And she essentially chooses the topic. She just starts to speak. And we talk about many of these things: kings, governments, ministers, armies, dangers, wars. These have all been topics. For example, our last 2 topics, she was explaining her experiences with COVID and what happened in their country. Mm-hmm. And she speaks a lot about the war and their army in Israel and things like this. Mm-hmm. So I'm speaking about these things, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of the time it's more her just speaking, and I'm trying to also be very mindful because I disagree with something. Sometimes there's slander, sometimes there's harsh speech, and I just try to remind the mind, right, being mindful that that's not my job here. I'm just trying to correct grammar, pronunciation, things like this. Mm-hmm. So I don't engage in things that would be unwise speech, but I do end up speaking about these things. Mm-hmm. Would it be more wise to maybe, and I do try to more ask questions and prompt and just get the student to speak more. Would it be the most wise to just continue asking questions and not speak about these things at all? I have been speaking about experiences in this life, right? We talk a lot about cause and effect, truthfully, and I haven't been seeing it as unwise. This happened and this was the result, and this happened with her and this was the result. So how do you know the difference between unwise and wise here? Like, how do I know how to navigate this?
Sure. So multiple things here. First, this is for ordained practitioners, what he's talking about here. But then some of them, like I said, do actually relate to household life. But then as a household practitioner, and even as an ordained practitioner, it's not about what the other person's talking about. It's what you're choosing to talk about. So if she's choosing to talk about the war and that's her choice, you can't control and force somebody else of what they would talk about. So if she's talking about the war, that's up to her. That's her decisions. But you're not choosing to talk about that. And that's what's going to produce the wholesome results for you. Whereas if you started to disagree with her, if you started to share your views and opinions, that's where it's producing unwholesome results for you. But just listening to her talk, that's not going to cause you any unwholesome karma. Then you already know this as well, is that it's your role that you need to be able to look at. Your role here isn't to teach her the teachings of the Buddha. Your role is an English teacher in teaching her how to pronounce things and know how to read and write and things like this. So that's what you're focused on. So if the topic that she would like to talk about is the war, that's her choice to talk about the war. And now all you're doing is correcting grammar and pronunciation. And yes, you can use questions to just ask her questions, but you're not speaking about these things yourself. So it's not producing unwholesome karma for you.
Thank you very much. And I did have one other question. Street talk and slang, I've never heard this before. So a wise individual does not use slang?
Yeah, because your slang is interpreted in many different ways by different people. And as an enlightened being, you're interested in people being able to understand you. Part of being enlightened is to speak clearly, concisely, precisely, not having people to have to work to figure out what it is that you're saying. And with slang, not everybody understands slang. And it can be interpreted in different ways, sometimes negatively, sometimes positively. So if you dip down into slang, now you're putting yourself in a situation where people are going to have to work harder to be able to understand you. And not everyone is going to understand you, and people can interpret your words in different ways. So people who are enlightened tend to not use slang, or if they're going to use slang, it's going to be a very common one that's very simple, and there's like no way for it to be misunderstood by anybody whatsoever, and it's only going to produce wholesome results. But it's very rarely that they even will use slang. I think you had another question.
I think I have a pretty similar question because I'm a teacher myself as well. And so I want to ask, so everyone, we all belong to the society. We are part of the society, right? So we hang along with people every day. We need to communicate, to speak to different people every day. So all these topics, I think here includes a lot. So maybe we won't initiate these kind of topics, but we can't avoid hearing people talking about this. So if every time when we hear someone talking about this, we don't give enough response as expected, maybe the relationship will go worse, or even we may be alienated in a certain group. For example, in a working space, we may lose the trust or the relationship with someone we really care about. So deal with that.
Okay, so if somebody puts expectations on you and they're expecting you to be a certain way, this is their selfish desires. This is them trying to control you and force you to be a certain way. And if they're only interested in being your friend or interacting with you, if you meet their expectations, you're signing up and sabotaging your ability for a difficult and turbulent relationship, because this person, you will never be able to meet their expectations. So the goal of this life isn't to meet other people's expectations, because an expectation is just another way of saying craving, desire, wants, right? They want you to be a certain way. And if you're the way I want you to be, then I will associate with you. But if you stop doing things my way, I can't associate with you any longer. This is selfishness. This isn't the type of relationships that are going to produce beneficial results in your day-to-day life. So if somebody chooses to not be your friend or not associate with you because you're not meeting their expectations, so be it. right? Just as long as your mind isn't craving and clinging and holding on and wanting this relationship to be permanent, you can be completely comfortable. If they choose to leave out of your life because you're not meeting their expectations, hey, that's wonderful for you, because that's one less person that's trying to pressure you to do things their way. Right? You're your own individual person. You need to feel comfortable making your own individual decisions. You shouldn't go around feeling obligated to do what other people want you to do. Because if you had 10, 20, 30, 50 friends and you tried to meet every single person's expectations, you're not living the life you would like to live. You're living the life according to all these other people. And this is something that's oftentimes common with parents. Parents will sometimes put expectations on you and try to control you or force you to do things their way. That's not what you would be interested in signing up for, because you can't meet these people's expectations permanently because of impermanence. So as long as your mind's not craving permanence, if someone chooses to not associate with you because you're not meeting their expectations, hey, that's wonderful. That just actually saved you. So your results in your life isn't based on hearing people talk about these things. If people talked about these things and you heard it, it's not producing any unwholesome karma on your side because you haven't chosen to do these things yourself. But when you're choosing and making choices to do certain things, that's what's producing unwholesome karma for you. Other people can't produce karma for you. So if someone else chose to talk about politics or the war or any of these other things, I can just sit there and be calm and peaceful and joyful and smile, and I can maybe change the subject or talk about something else, or I can just get up and walk away and go somewhere else. And if this person is like, I don't like spending time with David because he never talks about politics, and if he's going to be my friend, he needs to talk about politics. Okay, well, guess I'm not your friend. Right? Because I'm not interested in being in relationships where someone's putting expectations on me, right? If someone's putting expectations on me, I'll never meet those expectations. And they're going to get angry and frustrated, and they're going to think I'm the one who's causing it, when in reality, it's their own mind causing it. So you can just be comfortable to know what's wise and what's unwise, and practice what's wise, because that's what's going to produce wholesome results for you. But other people aren't going to necessarily know that, and you need to be comfortable with understanding people are going to come in and out of your life, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned whatever the other person is talking about related to all of this pointless talks. We are not creating our karma. Is it selfish to intend not to create karma?
You're always creating karma in everything you do, every decision you make. When you got up and you walked over there and you picked up the microphone and came back, you were producing right? Because when you walked over there, you didn't cause any harm to anybody. You were practicing harmlessness, and that's why no harm came to you. Where I know you wouldn't do this, but let's just say you walked over there and you were flapping your arms around and you weren't being aware of your body and you were slapping people in the face as you're walking over to pick up the microphone. You're producing unwholesome karma in that situation, right? Because now you're causing harm to someone's physical body, and now harm's going to come back to you. So you're always creating karma, either wholesome or unwholesome, in every decision that you're making. And that's why the Buddha is teaching you through the Eightfold Path. You guys didn't learn that here. That's why I suggest for you to study with the basic fundamental teachings first, the first volume of the book series, because that's where you're going to learn the fundamental teachings of how to practice harmlessness, where you're not causing harm. So you're always producing karma in every decision you make. So that's why if somebody was talking about politics, for example, and you're just hearing it, you're not producing any wholesome or unwholesome karma there in terms of the speech. That person is the one speaking. They're choosing to speak. If you then chose to argue and be frustrated and try to convince this person that your opinions are true and theirs are false, now you're producing unwholesome karma because you're trying to force this person and convince this person to agree with you. So you're always producing karma. And that's where the more that you understand what the wise decision making is, that in this situation where someone starts talking about politics, you'll just know that it's unwise for me to talk about this. And you will just perhaps keep your opinions to yourself or change the subject or get up and step away from the conversation or whatever it is that you choose to do. It's your choice. It's your life. But you ultimately will see this natural law of karma so clearly that you'll be able to see like, oh, it's so unwise for me to talk about politics with anybody, even if they agree with me about what I'm thinking, because it's only a matter of time before you guys touch on a topic that they disagree with you on. Because if someone has certain thoughts about politics, that's their opinion, that's their views. You don't need to convince other people of your views about those kinds of things. But that's what the unenlightened mind will do. It'll tend to go out into the world and try to convince other people that my way is the right way and your way is wrong. And this is coming from the mind's ego, the arrogance, the pride, the conceit. I'm right and everybody else is wrong. And now I need to convince everybody else that my way is the right way. But if you take this approach, you're going to find conflict after conflict after conflict, and now your relationships are going to be in disharmony. So you're always producing karma in one way or another. And the more you understand this wise wisdom of the Buddha, then you'll be able to produce wholesome karma for yourself.
As a teacher, we always have to regulate the students, to ask them to do what they need to do. For example, handling their homework on time. So all these sounds like forcing them to do certain stuff, right? So I wonder if this is interventing, or this is to doing something bad, like to influencing their karma.
So again, I don't think of it as good or bad. But what would be wise if I was an English teacher or whatever it is that you teach, I don't know what you teach, what I would do is I would spend the first part of the semester, definitely the first class, talking about why it's wise to learn and grow and develop and what that's going to lead to for their future, and how learning and growing in this class that I'm going to teach you over the next 9 months is going to help you in your life. I would make sure that they understand that through a really helpful discussion so that they can see why it's important for them to make the choice to do their homework, that I'm not forcing them. And I would let them know, hey, I'm not going to force you to do your homework. I'm not going to control you to do your homework. If you do your homework, here's the results that you will experience. And if you don't do your homework, here's the results that you will experience. The decision's up to you. You can decide however you like, but just understand that these are the results that you will experience. And then as you go forward in the semester, at different times you'll say, okay, everybody, I would just like to remind you, your homework's due tomorrow, right? For those of you guys that would like to hand in your homework, it's going to be due tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And if you don't turn it in, you guys already understand what's going to happen. So it's up to you to decide for yourself, right? So if you lay the groundwork of helping them to understand the why homework is important, then you'll find that you don't have to force and you don't have to pressure. So like my son, he's 13 now. He's been in different schools, but now he does homeschooling. And when he's been doing homeschooling, I used to check every single day to make sure he was doing schoolwork. But then he got to a point where I could see he was doing it pretty readily. So now I check once a week. It's completely in his hands to do his homework, and he understands the reason why and why it's important, and he understands the grades that he needs to get and how to make sure he gets good grades and stuff. And I'm just there kind of monitoring it if he needs any help for any reason. And we've been doing it this way now for the last week or so, where he's got a whole week to be able to accomplish all of his assignments, and he understands what he needs to do. He understands why he needs to do it. He understands how it's leading to beneficial results in the future. And then that way he's incentivized on his own for his own best interest to make wise decisions, that it's not dad that's forcing him or trying to control him to do his work. He understands why it's wise for him. And now with that wisdom of understanding why it's wise for him, he chooses to make those wise decisions. The way that I think about it, and it was actually my son that came up with this, is that if you're walking down the beach and you're kicking up sand and the wind is blowing the sand back in your face, you realize, this is unwise for me. I should stop kicking up the sand because I don't like this sand blowing back in my face. This is the natural law of karma. If you walk down the beach and you continue to kick up sand, it's going to continue to blow back in your face. So eventually you learn, let me just stop kicking up sand, right? And now since the cause has been eliminated, the effect will be eliminated too. So the same thing is true, that if you teach your students the cause and effect of doing homework and not doing homework, and how this is important for their overall growth as a human being and their success as an adult, now you'll find that they'll be more incentivized to do it. You're still going to need to remind them from time to time and remind them of this conversation that you had initially at the beginning of the semester, but you're going to see that it's so much easier because they already have the wisdom to understand that it's not just busy work, it's actually working into a bigger picture of things that's guiding them to be a successful adult in the workforce. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, I don't see any other questions. The way that I normally do this class is we just kind of go up to a certain point. I usually go up to like 10:30. Right now it's 10:45. So wherever we get to with questions and stuff like that. On Saturday evenings, I do this particular class online from home, and we do 10 chapters. We go through all 10 chapters because those students have typically been studying with me for a while, and they don't need to know a lot of the basic things. And we also don't do meditation in that class either. So if you're interested in diving into this in more detail, that would be a class for you. But then there's the Sunday class, which is where students are oftentimes starting in the Sunday and Wednesday classes. And then each month we have certain courses and retreats that you can see on our calendar over there on the bulletin board. You can also see it on our website. We have an events calendar where you can see all the different events that we have. We even have a meditation each Sunday night at 6:30 at the main hall. If you're coming for the Sunday night walking market, or if you'd like to just come for the meditation at 6:30 tomorrow evening, we're going to be in the main hall over there doing meditation. And what I do is I guide students in meditation, and then I just open up to whatever questions you guys have. There's not a formal class that I teach over there. So you guys are always welcome to come to that too. And you'll see all these options on our bulletin board over there and on our website. If you'd like any help from me, you're more than welcome to come talk, and I'll help you to get plugged into any of the resources that you need. So feel free to use that as an option for you as well. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you guys in one of these future classes. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Question. So I found
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.